As our world leans into sustainable innovation and efficient production, the chemical industry stands at a critical juncture, transforming long standing processes to meet the demands of a globalized, eco conscious economy. At the forefront of this movement is Dr. Hanno Brümmer, Executive Vice President for Supply Chain and Logistics at Covestro. With an experience of over 25 years in the process industry and a strong foundation in chemistry, Dr. Brummer's experience spans research, large scale production, and high stake investment strategies that shape the future of global manufacturing. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Brummer with us to share his journey from research chemist to executive leadership, navigating projects across continents, and managing supply chains that serve regions from Europe to Latin America. He'll offer insights into what it takes to lead in this dynamic field, the essential skills for budding engineers, and his vision for a sustainable, resilient future in chemical engineering.
We welcome you, sir, and thank you so much for joining on a Sunday. And so firstly, I'd like to ask, can you walk us through your typical role or typical day in your role at Covestro? What are some of the key responsibilities and challenges you manage daily?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much also to your side. It's my honor to be participating in your podcast. I know we've had some exchange between VIT and Covestro over the years, so very happy to join again today. Thank you. Yeah, as a supply chain head, there's really, let's say, twofold things that characterize everyday working. On one hand, supply chain is a very detailed and also a very quick business. We have thousands of trucks, rail cars, boats on the road every day. Thousands of orders are being processed. So you can imagine in that field, although we have a high degree of automation, there's usually one or the other topic that might be a smaller item, might be a bigger item. And then there's always the chance of having, let's say, some interruptions in the supply chain, a port closure, a strike, a construction, an issue at a customer side that needs changes. So you have to be rather fast paced to react to making sure you still deliver reliability and sustainability. And at the same time, and that's the span, we're also developing our supply chain into the future, driving digitalization, driving new approaches in sustainability. So looking also for the mid and the long term. And my daily life is anywhere between this very daily urgent topics and more midterm and long-term topics I'm working with.
Thank you, sir. So, as you mentioned, there are a lot of challenges that you have faced in the supply chain sector, and you have mentioned some of those also. So, we have seen that you have worked across different continents and countries in the past 25 years. So, can you please share some experiences that you have had across the world, like some challenges or any instance that you faced that might have like given you the driving force to continue in this career?
Yeah, thank you to do so. Maybe a little bit about my career because it characterizes a little bit also who I am. I'm, let's say, not so much the usual person in supply chain since my background is chemistry. I studied chemistry, so I did 5 years of research and then spent 20 years in manufacturing in different locations in Europe, but also in the United States, where I worked several years. And then later on, I was globally responsible for all manufacturing of different business units. That has really helped me to understand manufacturing complex, but also how it fits into, let's say, different cultural and educational backgrounds. We are manufacturing across the world in countries, again, like in Central Europe, in Germany, in Belgium, in Spain, but also in the US, in China, in India, in Japan. And you can imagine we have people from different cultural backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, still manufacturing in our plants. And what is also the driving force? What is the motivational things that people have? How do you work with developing people from these different backgrounds? That has really shaped my experience and now helps me running a supply chain, which is also going across region, understands also customer behavior, when we work with logistics partners, whether these very small ones, companies that own just a few trucks versus other global players that have a global networks of, let's say, shipping containers or global networks of tank storage. So it has really helped me to working in all these plants and being at those sites and interacting with the people, understand how to approach it the best way.
Thank you very much. So, another crucial question that I
Mm.
want to ask is why supply chain after having a PhD in chemistry, being a PhD chemist, and from there you just entered into this sector of supply chain? Why was that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I can tell you, most of my career was not that I sat down on day one and sort of planned it all out. This is what I'm going to be for the next 20 years. As a chemist, to step into a research lab is a very normal step for a PhD chemist. Very similar to my colleagues who have a degree in mechanical engineering or chemical engineering. The typical job where they start will maybe be a process lab where they improve one of the processes of Covestro in manufacturing, or they join the engineering department where they work on, let's say, small investment projects up to bigger facilities that we're building. That's the typical entry level. And that makes a lot of sense because you bring all your skills from university, you bring all your technical skills, at the same time you learn how does a multicultural company work, which can be quite different, let's say, than in university field or what you are used to. But later on, people develop in all kinds of directions. I have colleagues I started with, and they're still in research, and they enjoy it because that's research is really what gave them. And maybe today they're already leading teams, they're leading large projects, they have become a super expert in one of the technology fields. We have chemical engineers who are what we call now our global experts for one technology that we do. I don't know, for instance, chlorine technology, and they know all the plants in the world. They know all the details. There will not be a single plant manager in the world that does a change without asking that key expert, am I doing the right thing? What is the material that I should be buying? What is the setup? But also other people have developed also in other fields. And for me, after 5 years of innovation, I was always intrigued by the manufacturing plants, which I saw in the big site where I started in Leverkusen. So I wanted to try that out to be in one of the manufacturing plants. And how it happened, I stayed 20 years. Of course, not in that particular plant, but then I got assigned in a different plant. I became a plant manager. As I spoke before, I got the chance to work in the United States for several years as a plant manager. And so how I developed. And then after those 20 years, I was actually asked from the manufacturing organization to join the commercial organization. Supply chain is for us a commercial function because we say the salespeople, they deliver our customers, let's say with contracts, with volume, with prices, but we physically provide our customers. And at that time, we were merging all the logistics activities, whether it's the inside logistics of drumming, filling, bagging, whether it's the transportation, whether it's external storage. All these areas before I came in were managed by different departments. We put this all together. That's why you see in my abbreviation, it's called supply chain and logistics. I'm responsible for all of these logistics. So somebody with a long experience in manufacturing, where usually logistics sort of is the last step before the material leaves the plant to the customer, that has really helped to shape that and to organize it. And when you look at operational logistics, actually, there's a lot of similarities to manufacturing. So for me, it was somewhat a logical next step, being closer to commercial. Now I have to do much more with customers and products than before. On the other hand, bringing my experience. But it could have also been something else. That's the nice chance if you join a large companies. There's so many opportunities that can come up. So things can work in go in different fields. I know engineers who are now product managers who work with customers on a day to day, or they're in the contract field. There's many opportunities once you have joined such a large company.
Great. So, to be honest, being a chemical engineering student myself,
Mhm.
like most of the chemical engineering students don't actually know what chemical engineering is about before they join it. So basically, if they have any interest in chemistry, they will just take the chemical engineering course because they have taken physics, chemistry, and maths in their high school. So they don't really about know about like what chemical engineering is. Like myself also, I had a peculiar interest in chemistry, so that's why I joined chemical
Mm.
engineering. So as you also shifted your career from being a chemist, I also was interested in having a Bachelor of Science or PhD in chemistry itself only. So is there any possibility for chemical engineers to work in companies like Covestro, which are basically in the supply chain field? And have you does Covestro like help these people for innovation in some way or the other? Because chemical engineers have their work in the field of innovation and in basically sustainability mode. So how does Covestro help these pursuing chemical engineers or chemistry students in this sector?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I said, most of the chemical engineers, also as a company of Covestro, they will probably add in a field which is very familiar to what they did. So if you were in on operations, you might join a field where and I'll just give you an example. We have an aniline plant in Antwerp, and we want to improve the process on energy demand, on yield, on all these things. So that might be your first assignment. You join the process team, and you would be working very closely with that plant, optimizing the process. So we can tap into all your latest knowledge and all your skills that you've learned. On the other hand, you can learn also how to work in a company, and it might be quite different from what you've experienced before. Because when you did your masters, when you did your PhD, yes, you were probably in a team of students with a professor. On the other hand, it was your topic and your thesis, and you would be working on your topics. Once you work in a large company, yes, you might have a leading role, but nobody owns a topic completely by him or herself. It will always be a larger team. In your team, there will be the plant manager. In your team, there will be other people who have to make sure what is the, let's say, financial approach you're doing to this topic. Um, there will be marketing people talking with you on the if it somehow changes the product, what does it mean for the market? How does it position ourselves? So teams get larger, and the biggest skill you will be learning in the first time is working in those fields, in those teams who might be all local, but might also be international. Maybe there's one or two experts from a different region in that field. And that will also show, are you able to do both? Bring in all your technical skills, but only really working as a team together. And it's not your thesis versus his thesis, but it's in the end, you need to come to a common conclusion. And then if you make a proposal for an investment, and that investment is several millions, then you have to put all the materials together and go maybe for the board approval for this investment that you are proposing as a team. So that's a lot of team working skills with a lot of business things. You will have to do calculations on the profitability, on your investments, on business risk, on all these kind of things. That's usually the biggest learning that chemical engineers then have in the first couple years. On top of the experience that also we live in a very regulated world. You can't just do a lot of things before evaluating what's the legal background, how are the safety experts concepts about this, are there any regulatory things you have to keep in mind. So I also see newcomers finding that extremely complex in the sense of I can't be doing what I, let's say, scientifically want to be doing, but it is a framework, even in a laboratory. Our chemists in a laboratory cannot just throw things together. They have to go through a step-by-step process, analyzing the safety, analyzing the consequences, looking at quality management, and so forth and so forth. But this is how real life is. Let's say the university research field is probably a little bit more broader and flexible.
So, sir, I'd like to ask, so many Indian students aim to work
Yeah.
internationally, and after completing their undergraduate studies, what
Mhm.
advice do you have for them? particularly in claiming global exposure and succeeding in multinational chemical companies, so specifically like Covestro?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and we see that, and we have really great experience also with Indian students who maybe did their bachelor degrees, undergraduate degrees in India, and then moved to European university where they reached their masters and then have been applying. One of the good first step is to internships, not for life, but many companies offer internships. We offer internships for people in all fields where first, of course, we tap on the expertise. No? So we had interns, very successful interns from India who brought great skills, for instance, in robotics program automation. No? And they were able to help us in some areas in supply chain where we have a tedious manual process. They helped us to automate that. So we are really building on their skills. At the same time, again, they were able to experience a little bit how is it working in a company? How is this teamwork working? Can I create a network? Can I get some contacts? What are typical entry levels? I can speak to people who have just joined Covestro to the normal application process, maybe in the engineering department and so forth. So I'm getting a flavor also from my side. Is that a company I want to work with? Is that something that inspires me? And then check for opportunities positively these days. Most of the company, as of Covestro, they will have a very transparent, very open hiring system. So it's not about you need to know somebody that you sort of give your CV to, but you will always go to the website. There's all jobs will be posted. It's an equal opportunity. Everybody can put their application there. And you can also, in that time, get it right. Is there anything I need to be doing on work permit or anything of kind of these kind of things in order to be able to be eligible, let's say, to work in the European Union? So all these things to get ready, and that's a good chance if you do, I don't know, a 3 to 6 months internship to get a little bit to know, but also getting yourself prepared. That has for me been a very successful, let's say, entry for especially Indian students and graduates.
So adding up to it, so what are some less explored or emerging fields within chemical engineering industry? And so basically the fields which hold a lot of potential for research and future growth. And what can fresh graduates find opportunities and basically so that are still developing fields?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I will mention two things. One is, I already spoke about this, is the field of, let's say, digitalization, artificial intelligence, robotics. But again, not being a programmer. That's a different story. If you want to be a programmer, be a programmer. But what's really attractive, if you are still, you're a chemical engineer, mechanical engineer, you're a chemist, but you have some ideas, some good understanding how to apply artificial intelligence, how to apply, let's say, programming, digitalization. You don't have to be an expert in that, but you bring that as an additional skill because that might be part of your job, and then you the one, at least if it comes about certain programming, you can speak to the programmer in much more, let's say, knowledgeable detail that somebody who hasn't touched that. So it's a nice additional skill while still being an engineer or chemist. A second topic I'd like to mention is all the field of sustainability. The chemical industry, and Covestro in particular, we are going in a large transformation from a very, what we call linear economy, where we were buying, let's say, petrochemical raw materials coming from mostly crude oil, returning them into materials, our chemical materials, then go to our customers who then make foams, for instance, and those foams go in refrigeration, into furniture, these kind of materials. And later on, these will be, let's say, end of life, disposed. They will be somehow ending up as waste. We are changing this entire picture, becoming independent from fossil raw materials by bringing those materials back. So in the end, we are collecting, for instance, in the field of mattresses, we have developed a process where we collect mattresses, we disassemble them, and we have to chemically dissolve the mattresses in order to bring them back into the process, making new raw materials, which in the end then saves putting in on crude oil. And at the same time, replacing the energy we're getting today from fossil sources by renewable energy out of solar and wind. So you see in that field, the entire chemistry landscape changes. And first of all, that's good news. We need a lot of chemists and a lot of engineers to create that and to solve all the detailed processes. On the other hand, we see, and I don't know exactly about VIT, but we see sometimes the field of recycling, circular economy, sustainability is not a big topic, let's say, on the agenda of the university of training students. And again, just like digitalization, you don't have to be an expert, but to bring some basic knowledge in that field and to understand how the chemistry industry is changing from the classical crude oil based linear industry to a circular industry is a skill that's very valuable because you will have to know that, and there's not a single project or new product within companies like Covestro who will have some sort of aspects on renewable raw materials, on circularity, on recycling. So that's definitely a field it's worth exploring, at least, let's say, on some basic levels in your study, and bring that as an extra skill, as an extra qualification.
So as you mentioned about sustainability, the chemical industry has an increasing focus on sustainability. And so how do you become involved in Covestro sustainability initiatives? And what new trends do you see companies taking advancements towards sustainability, mostly in this area?
Yeah, as I said, most of the processes have now aspects of sustainability in there. So again, if I come back to the one plant you might be responsible for optimizing, then there might be the question, okay, today this plant, just taking in the example of benzene, today they use benzene from crude oil fraction, international specification, quite straightforward. Now we're getting new benzene materials that come out of uh, food waste that come out of recycled materials. There are new, let's say, benzene qualities on the market. And the question might be then for the engineer, okay, how much can we feed in? How much do we need to adjust the process so we still make the products at the same yield, as the same quality as our customers are used to? What might have we do for adjustments there? Even again, up to the regulatory and organizational framework. When you have all these qualities, we do an approach what we call mass balance. So you know which material in or which amount you have, and then you know in the product which amount you have, and what's then the carbon footprint associated with. That might be a typical topic. So on one hand, yes, you are the classical engineer optimizing a process. On the other hand, you have to keep all these sustainability aspects in mind because that will also be part of your job to creating that full picture, and then you're able to report what is the effect on the carbon footprint of the product if we do A, B, and C. That's an aspect that might be a little bit more newer to you as a chemical engineer.
Thank you. So,
Mm.
like as you mentioned, that universities should focus on this field of sustainability more because this is the need of today, and most of our chemical industry is based on sustainability only nowadays. So I would like, for example, in VIT also, most of the students that are doing chemical engineering, they are mostly involved in the like, for example, we are in Velo. Okay, so
Mm.
the area that our university is in is Velo. So there are water treatment plants that are that are like supported by VIT itself.
Mm.
So students here would like do research as to how we can help them to recycle the waste better or
Yeah.
like treat the water better. So our
Hmm.
basic research is based upon that only. Many professors are like doing this research as of wastewater treatment around
Very good.
VIT
Yeah. Hmm.
and at an international level as well. So, sir, the next question that I would be like wanting to ask you is, as the executive vice president for supply chain, and all, you might look for some qualities in students who apply for internship at Covestro or any other job opportunities that they seek in any similar industry. So, what all skills do you think are essential for these students at a fresh start level? Like, what should they do to get a job in this field?
Hmm. Yeah, let's speak. It's a good question. Let's speak about first. Let's say the let's say more the technical skills. As I said, you still don't get me wrong. You still should be, let's say, a good chemist, good engineer that really knows what it takes to be a good chemist engineer. Now, don't sacrifice that in order to learn all kinds of other fields. Having additional skills, as I said, in digitalization, maybe in robotics programming, maybe in sustainability, maybe in business things are good, but again, should never sacrifice. You should not be, so to speak, only half an engineer because you did all these extra things. There are additional things, but on the other hand, companies like ours will employ you because you're a good engineer. You know what you're doing and you really understand what it takes to be a chemical process or mechanical engineer. The other ones are nice add-ons. That's very important. Then, secondly, as I said, once you're in the company, also these other leadership skills play a role. As I said, open teamwork, open network. You will never work in a company, let's say, on your own. Even the so-called experts, you need to be outgoing. You need to be able to work in these companies. It has been very helpful. The company are much less hierarchical than they might have been 20 years ago. So you can pretty much approach anybody in the company without having to go to, let's say, going to the levels. You can directly chat, contact somebody directly. On the other hand, it's also being asked that you do it. Nobody will carry you by the hand. Everybody will be help you to make a contact, but it's up to you to get the right people together, to get the right resource together, to shape your product, your project, to see what it takes. So that's something you have to be ready to be doing and to organize yourselves, working multicultural, working between present at the site, but working in hybrid areas like we're doing here today, fully online, using all these modern things. You have to be ready to do that and to be quite flexible. Then I think you can enjoy working in multinational companies. If you prefer, from your, let's say, attitude, if you prefer to have one and one field only, very deep, then the bigger industries might not be the 100% best choice for you. You might want to do a research career, which is totally fine in universities, in institutes across the world. But working in multicultural teams, working very open, also being ready that topics change because this project maybe gets stopped and another project comes up and that's more important. If you're ready for that, if you're engaged in that, then it can be very attractive in the industry, and you can be very attractive for the industry.
So as you mentioned, like we should not compromise our core study of engineering or any other field that we are studying to get the other sustainability or automation and all skills that we can get. So we should mostly focus on our core study, and that would be more than enough for our like for shaping our career till an extent. If we want to
Mhm.
enhance our careers, we would get other skills as well. So one more question I had, like, how did you, as you were pursuing in a PhD in chemistry. So
Mhm.
what all things did you do apart from the core study that you did in order to get a leadership role at Covestro?
Most of the things actually I even developed in the company. As I said, I was in the beginning, I was a classical researcher. I had a research team. I was heading a laboratory with two colleagues, and we are working in the research field. Um, but then also between, let's say, my supervisor and I, we had regular talks, and you do this several times a year. Okay, what could be a next development step? And as I had really gotten some interest on some people who had left and who had gone into manufacturing, I felt like this is something I should explore. So I found plant managers. I visited them. I did walkthroughs in the plant. I asked them really about what is their job like to be a plant manager, and it felt like that'd be something I like to try out. So I tried to make the contact. I spoke with my supervisor. We call this the development dialogue that you have on a regular basis, where you speak your mind and what could be things. And at that time, we did not have an open job posting, but then he helped me to move into this field. This was very important. So it's also about your initiatives. We always say your development, your supervisor is there to give you the help, what you need, but you're driving it. And once you're driving it, and I said, okay, I want to work into manufacturing, there was a lot of things I needed to learn. Again, about safety, about whether it's occupational safety, whether it's process safety, regulatory things about our environmental, about qualification management like ISO standards and so forth. But usually companies have a large array of classes that you can do online, classes that you can visit, things you can learn by hosting with somebody, that you partner up with somebody and you meet on a regular basis. Once you take it in your hand, there's multiple ways of learning. So most of these skills are actually learned on the job. You don't have to be nervous to say, I need to bring all of this on day one. Companies will help you to learn the skills. And later on, I even had some, let's say, some business classes, how to do net present value calculations for investments and so forth. All of this you can learn. You don't have to bring all of this once you started. Companies will be very happy to help you, send you a week to a business school, whatever it takes in order to prepare you for the next job. But you, in the end, you're the driver also of your skill sets in your career. And it's lifelong learning. When I joined 3 years ago, when I joined supply chain 3 years ago, I was already 25 years with the company. And I had all of a sudden, I was responsible for the departments. For me, was totally new topics. For instance, I'm responsible now for customs and for trade compliance. And you can imagine that's a very specific field with very specific regulations. When you do everything right, everything is quiet, but you can do a lot wrong. And then there can be, let's say, big difficulties if you haven't, let's say, had the right document with your chemicals, and then it's considered to be not okay what you shipped out there. Documentation is not okay. There's the topic of dual use. So we know all chemicals can be used for the right thing, but they can also maybe used for not so good thing in a couple more steps. So it's very picky, the authorities, that everything is declared well and everything is fine. I had to learn a lot in that field. I'm still not an expert, no? And I don't need to be an expert, but I need to be able, at least to my team members who are experts, and help them and understand. And if they come with an issue to me, when they come with a proposal to me, I need to be able to judge that. But I learned that. No? So even 3 years ago, being in the 50s, still went back to school and says, okay, I need to learn the basics of customs. I need to learn the basics of trade compliance. I learned a lot about credit management. How do we do a contract on receivables with our company, with our customers, on payment terms, and these kind of things. But for me, it's always been inspiring. I always love to learn new things and engage in new fields. But you have to engage in lifelong learning. That's a big topic. It will never stop. No?
Yes, sir. Uh, Sir, I'd like to ask you about your memorable experience working internationally, which
Mm-hmm.
shaped your approach to career or your perspective. So we would love to hear about that. Sir.
Yeah. As I had two personal experience already with the United States in my career, which has been very helpful. I was in school in 12th grade. I spent a year at the United States high school. And later on, as I said, when we were with the young family, we also spent 3 years in Houston. I was a plant manager there. And this has shaped us, our family, and especially me in different forms. First of all, you learn also to be somewhere else where you are. Let's say you are the foreigner, you are the stranger, and you learn how to act with the people, and you really appreciate the openness of people, and that has shaped me and has shaped my family also when we have now contact with international foreigners. What it also helped, especially when I was in a global manufacturing head, also learn how approaches can be very different from cultural backgrounds. You can imagine a discussion about a manufacturing problem in the plant. Usually every plant has a morning meeting, where you sit down and say, how did the night run? Everything smooth or there's a problem? And when you look at let's say, you can imagine you had a problem in the night and you discuss this at a US facility versus you discuss this in a Japanese facility, will be very different. They will be very different on the how things are described, how people go into action. In United States, there's a lot of more action already taken. On the other hand, maybe the analysis was a little short and is already, let's say, it's trying to solve the problem as we go along. While maybe in a cultural, more Asian culture like Japan, things will be first very, very much analyzed in detail and made a very structured plan and then go about it. And none of these approaches is right or wrong or better than the other, but you need to understand how people are educated and how, let's say, the culture say how you're going to solve problems and what you expect also from the boss. Do you expect from the boss just to be a partner to give some guidance, or you expect the boss to make the decision and say, this is what we're going to do first and this is what we're going to do second? How is the, let's say, understanding how things should be documented and checked? So having a culture understanding working in different regions on the same problems has really been helpful. So you speak truly the right language and you truly approach, what do you say? What is the environment you create that people tell you about real problems? In some cultures, it's not okay to say no to your boss in front of other people. But maybe it's important that they say no to you because maybe you are on the wrong path. Then you need to create an environment where your employee feels very comfortable also to tell you, boss, I think this is the wrong decision. But he might not do this in an open meeting. So if you don't understand that and you don't create the opportunity, you might miss out and you might still be on the wrong path because you're not listening to the expert and the expert might not feel comfortable to speak up. That's all our typical things, getting people awareness and doing that, because in the end, again, when you are the manager, it's not important to get positive results. It's the critical results, it's the critical feedback that counts, because you really learn something and you might have overseen an aspect. And that's why you also have to create a good, trustful environment where you work together and learn from each other, independent of hierarchies.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been a great experience to interact with you about the supply chain industry, sustainability, and all the digitalization skills that you spoke to us about. So, any final words of wisdom for these young chemical engineers or other chemistry undergrads or any other engineering undergrads? Like anything, any advice that you want to give them to look forward in their career and keep it in mind?
Yeah, happy to do so. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, congratulations if you choose to be a chemist, a chemical engineer, other engineering fields. I can be 100% sure if I say the right thing. The world needs you. They need your education and they need you to engage in the industry. As I mentioned, Covestro is a materials manufacturer, so we make modern materials. We are a strong believer that the entire change of the world, whether it's about climate neutrality, modern transportation, digitalization, all of these will require many new materials, materials way beyond how we've produced them today. But secondly, not again from fossil raw materials, but from recycled closed loops. That's really the vision. For that, we need a lot of chemists and engineer. The entire industry needs that. So anything you hear about the plastic topic, of course, we have an issue with plastic waste, but also the issue with plastic waste can only be really, truly, sustainably solved, again, by smart engineers and smart chemists. We need those materials just to make sure they end up in the system and they're being recycled and they don't end up in the environment or where they don't have to be, where they shouldn't be. So for that, I think if you engage in that and you say, I want to be, let's say, not part of the problem, but I want to be part of the solution, then you're taking the right approach. And that for me, it has been very inspiring. And I can only encourage young people like you to engage in that to make us a truly sustainable society with renewable energy, with materials going in circles, and then we can really drive development. So happy to see institutes reaching out, happy to see institutes educating. I'm very positive about that. That would be my summary statement. And thank you very much again for being able to speak with you this morning.
Sure, sir. On this note, we come to an end of our episode today. Dr. Bruemmer has given us a great look at the promising future for students in chemical engineering, from tackling global challenges like sustainability to innovations in this field full of opportunities. Thank you, Dr. Bruemmer, for sharing your insights. And to our listeners, we hope you feel inspired and ready to make a difference in the world as future chemical engineers. Stay tuned with AIChE-VIT's Chemically Doped series for more such amazing and insightful podcasts. Thank you.